not only do we have to price greenhouse gas emissions through a carbon price, that would tend to make sure that we'll actually reduce emissions. We also want to encourage those technologies which in the long term could be cheaper but may be expensive today.
What's proof of concept in 2020 might be quite different to what actually happens in 2030. So it's that continuous technology development which will lead to a much better outcome in 2030. Now the problem is that private industry at this point in time regards the risk as being too high, and the returns that they'd expect for an investment commensurate with the risk would be too high. So there's a market failure, if you like, and so the government, I think, has a role in assisting in the development of those technologies.
In looking at how best and efficiently to utilise energy at the moment, R&D and efficient land planning also must be part of that broader approach to energy policy.
It's important that state governments are aligned with the central policy, but it makes much less sense for state governments to have their own climate change targets or to have their own support programs, because what they tend to do is actually cannibalise the central government's policies.
Clearly, state and federal governments, some seem to be going in their own separate directions, and there is a need for a much more coordinated national approach to each of these issues.
Government should be doing pre-competitive research, work, pre-competitive investment, which includes pre-competitive R&D at the sort of fundamental level. And it includes things like pre-competitive exploration for carbon capture and storage places. It might include infrastructure development to get electrical cables out to wherever the renewables might be generating power. Those sorts of things, I think, are enabling pre-competitive things. So the government can use it to understand that, how much they should be spending on that. But private industry can be using the model to understand where it sits on the risk to its profit. What is the upside for private industry in the future, and what should it be investing in to enable it to make a commercial investment in the future? It might be things like doing its own R&D to improve its knowledge in certain areas, or buying land, or to site things, or taking up tenements for pipelines, or whatever it needs to do to enable the future commercialisation investment.
This policy perspective, as with the case with the nuclear energy policy perspective, will now be rolled out around Australia at a series of thought leadership forums for people to have their say. Based on information that will be gathered during those thought leadership forums, we will add that to the information that we've gathered already in this very large space of research dealing with energy options, and coupled with the third policy perspective, ultimately write a major report that we hope will be able to be used by decision makers at federal and state levels, and indeed within the business community when determining Australia's future energy options.